Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are duo.halo, and we are so excited to have composer Stephen Lias with us, who wrote the amazing work that we took on tour last year, Imaginary Folk Songs, which is also the title of our upcoming album that's dropping on December 2nd. Stephen, thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I've been looking forward to talking to you for all week.
Yeah, this piece was really, really fun to put together. It was certainly the biggest piece on the program. And we're just curious to get started here. How did you put this piece together? Where did this idea come from?
Well, Nathan Nab, the saxophonist, is a great friend of mine, and one day we were in a car together, and he mentioned that he really likes saxophone pieces that are based on folk music. And that
Hmm.
got my wheels turning because I had worked for over a decade as the composer in residence for the Texas Shakespeare Festival. And
Oh,
when you
cool.
write incidental music for theater, it's your job to come up with fake folk music. Like all these Shakespeare plays and many other plays have music, like they have lyrics in them, but
Hmm.
no music. And so you bring on a composer and they're supposed to come up with what sounds like, what the folk of this imaginary world would be singing. And so in my head I said, well, some of my favorite folk music is my own music. As stupid as that sounds, like, you invest all this work into a play, and then just like the sets at the end of the play production, everything goes in the dumpster and has no life after that. And so
Hmm.
when he said he really liked adaptations of folk music, I started thinking, I could do a set where I sort of reclaim some of these great melodies and musical ideas that I had plugged into various plays over the years, and suddenly they would have a new life. And so I started going through all of the old scores I'd written. Not everyone is from a theater score; some of them are from some other sources,
Hmm.
but most of them are from plays of some sort. And that's how the idea came about. And I just kind of took it from there. I kept looking through my old output, finding things that I thought would really lend themselves to saxophone treatments.
That's incredible. I didn't even realize that when we were performing it. So I'm curious, why do half of them on soprano and half of them on alto? What made you kind of switch between the two instruments?
I'm mulling that over. The first movement to be composed was Bonnie Bye, and I knew that that wanted to be on soprano. And then I think the next one that I decided to include was Song of Light, and I just knew that one really needed the richer tone of the alto. And I think
Mhm.
that was it. I don't remember specifically that that's why I made the decision, but I think that was probably my initial conundrum of, oh, I really want the soprano, oh, I really want the alto. Well, maybe I'll use both.
Mhm.
So I'm guessing that that was probably the origin story of why both. But then as it evolved, I started realizing, oh, this can be a really flexible set then, because it can be done as six pieces in the order that they appear in the score, or it can be done as three and three, or it can be done as only three. You can just put the soprano pieces on a recital, and that's that.
Mhm.
And so that idea, once I had formed that idea, then it felt like a good one.
Yeah, and I think you nail it on that end. The soprano pieces definitely have like a more um not piercing is the wrong word, but it has a different quality. Like the other one, the alto ones have that warmth, and the alto
Hmm.
has a little bit more like potential for color than the soprano does. And I really appreciate, especially in Song of Light, where the piano sort of takes over and I can kind of get out of the way. It's really hard to
Right,
do that on soprano. It kind of just wants to
right,
be at the front of the ensemble. So I think you sort of nail it with the way the colors work on those two instruments.
oh,
And
good.
maybe like Jason, maybe you want to speak to the piano writing a little bit because I remember when we were working through this set, one of the things that Jason said to me early on was, "I this person must know how to play piano because this actually works for me."
I was very pleased with the piano writing. Well, I like that we're talking about Song of Light, that movement in particular. I I like how Frenchy it feels.
Yeah.
I like to say that I played a lot of French music during grad school, so I'm like in the whole tone scales. The notation makes sense, and the layering, the kind of faux, almost polytonality that
Right.
it makes sense to me, and it's clear and easy to read. What more can I ask for?
Well, you're very kind. I would describe myself as a recovering jazz pianist. Um, I'm not the sort of pianist who would ever play with the lights turned down and people sitting in velvet seats. That's not me at all. If I'm playing piano, people should be eating, preferably talking loud. Um, but my a life of being at the piano, I think has served me well in terms of being knowing what will fit the hands,
Hmm.
knowing how to maybe utilize the resources that the pianist has at their disposal. So most of the stuff that I write for piano, I can't execute myself, but I can do it slowly and I understand the piano well enough to know that it would work.
I can tell your hands are bigger than mine, and that's okay.
My hands are bigger than yours?
Yeah, they are.
I have little tiny girl hands.
Me too.
Okay, awesome. High five.
One thing I really like about the piece, speaking of the piano part, is a lot of repertoire in general for instrument plus piano. The piano is often accompanying the other instrument, but in this one,
Yeah,
I really feel like the pianist is as much of a soloist, if not more so, sometimes than I am, which is really fun for us because Jason and I, that's how we feel about our ensemble. It's he's not accompanying me; we're definitely a chamber group, and I really
right.
appreciate that your piano parts are so rich rather than just accompanying the sax.
Well, good. I'm delighted to hear that you feel that. That was the intent, but you don't always pull it off properly. So I'm glad to hear that.
Awesome. Well, let's get into the music here. Let's start listening to it.
Yeah.
A few moments later.
Yeah. That's great, man. The thing you were talking about is the smear you did in
Yeah.
the that yeah, the drunken gesture. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we switched the
That was
dynamics too. I think in the concerts we waited a little bit longer, but diga daga diga diga daga daga dum, and we did a little eye contact joke there,
uh-huh.
and then we smeared it, and we didn't get as many laughs as I thought we would, if I'm being completely honest, but it was fun.
Man, that sounds great. The whole thing sounds great. I'm so grateful to you guys for devoting not only all the time that goes into preparing a complicated piece like this, but just you did so much programming. How many different places did you have you performed this now?
Oh goodness,
Like,
it must be. It's in the 12, 15 maybe.
yeah, I was gonna say probably 15 different places now.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, it sounds great. It sounds great.
Thank you, and thank you for treating the saxophone so well. So often we get these like really avant-garde, crazy, noisy pieces, and it's fun to just like play deep, interesting, fun, funny music. So it was really a pleasure to work on this piece.
I'm glad that you say that. I'm not a saxophone, I'm not a wind player, and I've been fortunate to work with some really good saxophonists, and so I feel like I've learned on the job.
Mhm.
But also one of I as a composer, I think both of you, what did these people spend their entire education learning to do? Let's put a bunch of that in the piece. Like there's been decades of contemporary composers feeling like, they want to pursue extended technique or they want to pursue, different harmonic vocabularies and things like that are great. I don't have anything against those, but I
Mhm.
tend to not gravitate toward them because I want to write music that features the skill set that you spent decades developing you know? And so when you say that it's well written for the saxophone and the piano, that does my heart good because it's going to be saxophonists and pianists that decide what repertoire to play. And if you guys think it fits your instruments well, then I know that bodes well for the future of the piece.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no, it definitely does. It's not easy, but it lays down the
No.
instrument very well, and it's just a joy to play. You can't help but smile when you hear this music. So we really appreciate that. It's a joyous optimistic piece, and I think we need more of that.
Well, I'm delighted that you guys have championed it. I will tell you that your album coming out with this happens by sheer coincidence to coincide with a flute version of this set coming out.
Oh, cool.
Oh,
Yeah, I have a fair amount of flute music, and as adaptations go, this set seemed like it would work really well on the flute. It's all on C
Hmm.
flute, so the movements, like Jason, if you ever get asked to play the flute version, it's going to drive you absolutely bonkers because everything's in a different key.
mm,
So everything is going to feel different in the hands if you ever play that.
I
But yeah, it's exciting because I think it'll reach a whole other sort of clientele of musicians out there. So
That's fantastic. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, again, Steve, thank you so much for being with us. And if you're looking to get the album, it's available at duo.halo.com. It's currently on pre-order, physical and digital copies. And the digital copies will be emailed to you on December 2nd, and we'll be shipping out the physical copies on the same day. So please grab a copy. We're really proud of this one. We have such wonderful music like Imaginary Folk Songs. So we hope you check it out.